I think, firstly, he's looking to the future. It's very important to realize, obviously, that one day the monarchy that he takes over when he is king, it will be very different from that now. I mean, always the institution has changed. He realizes that it's very, very important, and I think we've seen this in the appearances recently. I'm most particularly thinking, well, firstly, when he was watching football as president of the FA, I mean, with George, and when he was posing for that selfie with Taylor Swift and a boyfriend with George and Charlotte. I mean, there's no doubt at all that that is something that you would never have seen in the past. But equally, it's something that's very, very significant in the future because social media is part and part of all of our lives. And he knows that that will get to an audience that's absolutely extraordinary. I mean, it would. I mean, he shows himself to be a Swiftie, and I think that's important. There are echoes here, for example, of Prince Charles and the Spice Girls. It's very significant that royals, they have to be seen to take note of current trends, not necessarily to be, so to speak, part of them in the sense that they won't be setting them, but to make sure that they're not behind them. So I think, that Williams struck the right balance here. This is starting to connect with, with an increasingly informal society where, things where the royals can loosen up, but they can also be formal. It's the way they balance the two that's part of the key to William and Catherine's enormous success when they were touring and when they were attending functions and so forth before she was ill. And of course, it is a very difficult time, but equally, this shows the royal family, insofar as it's humanly possible, is responding to more informal times, but also keeping that absolutely perfect balance between the formal and the informal, which you have to if you're royal. I think that the dad dancing ship wasn't necessarily one that he expected to be posted because, I mean, it was taken at an enormous distance, but I think he was enjoying himself. And I think it's, that went viral. So these images do, and they remind us of how human the royals are, but as one has to acknowledge at the moment, with really serious illness. So it's this business of keeping a balance, but also when you're doing it, you know very well that the world is on your side because they are enormously popular and are obviously supported by, well, I mean, much of the world tunes in. I think it was very, very important because this is a very big event. It's a major event to be seen with her and her boyfriend. I mean, I think it did a lot of good to the royals, to Prince William's image. Of course, it's a tremendously stressful period. Everybody knows that, and they know also that he's doing some royal engagements. He's making some appearances. He's also been photographed. I mean, if you look at the Father's Day photograph and also the birthday photograph, I mean, they also are very, very unusual images. I mean, normally we haven't seen, say, on the same Norfolk beach, Prince William photographed with all his children. And there's an interesting image taken from behind was an unusual pose, but the one where they leapt from the sand dune, I mean, that was animated. It was a very skillful photograph. And obviously, you do need to think it out because it's very hard to be spontaneous, and anything you do and anything you say is going to go viral, especially if things go wrong. I don't think William would take notice particularly of anything that Harry did regarding copying, because there'd be no reason for him to do it. Harry regarding himself as the spare again, as we know. No, I don't think there would be any problem there, and I don't think there would be any comparison. Harry himself has pointed out their roles are very different. They are able to do different things, and obviously as very, very different people, and we know that. We know there's a deep rift between them. They don't seem to be communicating from everything we are told, unfortunately. We know also that Harry has been tormented by the death of Diana, and this also links with his security fears and the case to get automatic police protection for his family as and when they were to come to Britain. it's very difficult to make a comparison between the two because they're so obviously so very different. The tragedy is, of course, that their paths have diverged quite so drastically. It's very difficult to discuss how exactly stress affects someone when you have a family to bring up, when obviously you have Catherine to help to look after, and also you've got royal engagements, and also you're in the full glare of everything you do with publicly in international press. So, I mean, clearly, I'd say he's doing extraordinarily well, and I think everyone would agree. And I think he and Catherine were, I mean, they were the world's most high-profile couple. She's got poise, glamour, she's dedicated to duty. But clearly, of course, it's a very difficult time for reasons that we know. And I think the way William's handling it seems superb. He was once asked, would he be the more activist king, or would he take a more conservative role? I mean, again, he indicated that he would take the Queen, late Queen Elizabeth, as his role model. Occasionally, I mean, he speaks out over. I remember he was quite the diplomat and visiting Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories years ago. He was the ideal choice, but equally he spoke out about the situation there some months ago. And again, that some notice was taken. They remember that this idea of being a people's prince, you want to be able to connect with people. Now, William is obviously examining the best way, the most effective way, and the most popular way without losing his dignity. Obviously, I mean, the dad dancing was good fun. The Taylor Swift selfie was excellent publicity. In fact, you see the football matches, that sort of thing. Of course, it's important, but then also that links to his presidency of the FA. There's no doubt at all that you get, if you want to connect with people, if you want to get serious messages across, people must feel that you are on their wavelength to some extent, and that's what's behind it. The royals do know that if they speak out, people will pay attention. Whether or not they agree is another matter, and obviously they can't become too controversial. When Prince of Wales was ahead of the game, in the sense that his then Prince's Trust, now the King's Trust, I mean, helped 1 million disadvantaged young people. That's a vast achievement. And he set up so many charities, which again is very significant. And of course, we know with architecture, homeopathy, interreligious understanding, I mean, you expect William with the Earthshot Prize, mental health and so forth. These are very important topics, and he's done a lot for them. Expect certain themes to be developed, but within the confines of the job, which are quite considerable. It's important to get the balance. That's the key to it. Michelle Obama once said that Queen Elizabeth told her royal protocol was rubbish. Essentially, it's what the royals decide to do and what is acceptable.